Coming to you from the home of Franklin's finest, this is the APB Podcast. Here now is Franklin Police Public Information Manager, Max Winitz.
Welcome in, everybody. It is episode 20 of the APB Podcast. Great, as always, to have you with us. On today's show, we are tackling the city of Franklin's only unsolved homicide, the Peggy Cox case. Now, if you are unfamiliar with this incident, let me take you back to February 1991. Peggy Cox, a hardworking mother of three, is gunned down on her birthday in the drive-through line at the Hardee's on Murfreesboro Road, which is still there, by the way. Peggy Cox, an employee at that Hardee's restaurant. So on today's show, we are going to be sitting down with Detective Matt Thompson, who is the lead detective on this case. We are going to learn the very latest on his investigation. Plus, we're going to ask him what his confidence level is as far as getting this case solved is concerned. This is obviously an incident that so many people in this community want answers to, especially Peggy's family. So we're going to get the latest details on this case in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's get to the news headlines. After 8 weeks of intensive classroom and hands-on training, 6 lateral recruits were officially sworn in last week as Franklin police officers. Congratulations to Jacob Neri, Lane Petrie, Carl Schilt, Brandon Shirley, Joel Walters, and David Wimmer. Each of them brings valuable law enforcement experience from across the country, including agencies here in Tennessee, New York, and Minnesota. The remaining recruits will head to the police academy later this month to continue their journey. The Franklin Police Department is also proud to welcome Officer John Baker, who was officially sworn in last week. Baker, a Nashville native, comes to the department following his recent graduation from the police academy. Now, unlike the 14 recruits who began training together in August as part of the department's largest ever class, Baker joined the department through a separate hiring process. So welcome aboard, Officer Baker. And a huge thank you to everybody who joined us for Chicken with a Cop last week and National Coffee with a Cop Day earlier this week. These events mean a lot to the Franklin Police Department. They give us a chance to meet you, the community, talk with you, and continue building that strong partnership that makes Franklin so special. So thanks again to everybody who came out to those events. When we come back, the latest on the Peggy Cox homicide investigation with the lead detective on that case, Detective Matt Thompson. That's next.
Are you ready to make a difference in your community? The Franklin Police Department is seeking dedicated, passionate individuals who want to protect and serve in the South's most charming town. As a member of our internationally accredited team, you'll be part of a dynamic, supportive department that values integrity, professionalism, and community engagement. Enjoy competitive benefits, career advancement opportunities, and the chance to truly impact the safety and well-being of our neighbors. For more information, visit franklintn.gov/joinfpd. That's franklintn.gov/joinfpd.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Max Winitz being joined by Detective Matt Thompson, who is in the Criminal Investigations Division here at the Franklin Police Department, the Major Crimes Unit. Great to have you on the show to talk about the Peggy Cox case.
Thank you for having me.
As I always do, would love to introduce you. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing, your military service, and your career at the Franklin Police Department.
Okay, so I was raised in Nashville, Tennessee. Grew up there, went through elementary school, high school, all that good stuff up in Nashville, South Nashville area. The day I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps, did about 7 years in the Marines, 2 overseas deployments, and then kind of used that to parlay into going to college once I got back and got out of the Marines. Got a business degree from Middle Tennessee State. I thought initially I wanted to go into business. I didn't really know what I wanted to do right out of high school. I don't think most 18-year-olds do.
Sure.
I I didn't even really know what the options were at that point. That was one of the reasons for going in the military instead of trying to figure all this out when I was basically a child still.
Yeah.
So, but I was able to, fortunate enough to use the military to get the GI Bill going. That helped pay for almost all of my college. But even then, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just kind of defaulted into a business degree because that's what, I don't know, I guess most people seem to do that. And I was okay at math, so I figured I would just knock that out.
Yeah.
Got a business finance degree. I tried to use it for about a year, worked at a bank, and I just didn't like it. I didn't mind I loved the people that I worked with there, but the work itself, the atmosphere, the culture, I just really wasn't feeling it. So, I met my wife at MTSU. I sat down with her and I talked to her about, hey, I'm not really happy doing this banking stuff. I can't do this for 40 years. I cannot do that. It's going to weigh on me. And I talked to her and she kind of, helped me figure out what I wanted to do. And, always had an interest in law enforcement, but never really pulled the trigger on that, so to speak. And then, if I saw Franklin was hiring and I applied with them, and it was a pretty quick process, a lot of applicants at the time. And I was fortunate enough to get a job offer from there. And I've been here ever since.
And how many years is that?
It'll be 11 years in January.
Okay.
So clearly I like it well enough to stay here. I have no complaints really. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Where were you deployed?
Both times to Iraq.
Okay.
So it was kind of, I don't know if you remember the way that those two wars kind of went, but Iraq and Afghanistan were kind of just ebbing and flowing on which ones were hot at the time. And it just happened to be during my service there that Iraq was the one that was kind of popping off a little bit more. Towards the end, when I was about to get out, it turned back to Afghanistan, but I was getting out prior to all that. So both times to Iraq, once to Fallujah, and then another time to like an air base in the western part of the country.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You've been here now over a decade. When was it that you transitioned from patrol into detective work?
Pretty early on. I mean, even on patrol, I would mostly just try to find calls that I could follow up on and work cases from my patrol car. They were really great here. They let me investigate, started off investigating almost every misdemeanor that I could possibly get my hands on. As a few years of me doing that went by, they started allowing me to investigate low-level felonies and stuff like that, especially property crimes. Like I said, all from my patrol car. So, I mean, I would get into work and just, go to my zone or whatever and start working on cases that I had and jump in calls that I thought would result in an investigation. So I identified pretty quickly what I wanted to do here, and that was to be a detective. And in 2018, there was an opening up in CID, and I decided to test. And again, fortunate enough to get selected for that.
And how much do you enjoy being a detective?
I enjoy it a lot. I've got no plans on leaving anytime soon. I joke with my buddies over there that they're going to have to drag me out, it's still fun. I get to still do police work. I have more interaction with the court side of things. I have a pretty deep interaction with the victims of my cases. On patrol, it's usually just, that one incident, the singular incident that happens, and you're on to the next one. But when you get to be a detective, you deal with those victims and those witnesses and the suspects even for sometimes a year or two until that can go to court.
And what's that feeling when you're able to solve a case and get justice? I mean, we'll talk about this particular case,
right,
and I can only imagine what would go through your head when you get that one solved. But how amazing of a feeling is it to, especially for friends, family, of the victim, or if the victim's still alive, to help them get results?
I mean, it's just elation, because I think a lot of people are skeptical of the criminal justice system just to begin with. And when you're able to kind of show them like, hey, sometimes this works, and it works well. And we just have to do a good job on the front end to make sure that everything's smooth all the way through the trial process.
Yeah.
And telling a victim that we're able to get justice for them or a loved one is obviously the goal. But it also it is very rewarding as a police officer to be able to do that.
So I suspect you are happy with your career change going from banking into police work.
Oh yeah, I couldn't be happier with that.
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier with that. I joke with my wife about it all the time, about where would we be if I had been 11 years in banking at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure banking is for some people, and like I said, I met a lot of great people doing it. But believe it or not, I found it was just too stressful for me.
Yeah.
And I know it's weird going to this, but I think maybe with my military background, this type of atmosphere was something that I needed more so than being in a bank.
I feel like you can make more of a difference helping somebody open up a checking account versus solving an unsolved case.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're right.
All right. Speaking of unsolved cases, the Peggy Cox homicide remains the only unsolved homicide in this city. February 1st, 1991, she was shot and killed. Take me through that night. And for the folks unfamiliar with this case, just what exactly happened at that Hardee's on Murfreesboro Road.
Yeah, so I mean, Peggy was a pretty long-time employee at that store. She was one that they could rely on. She lived a pretty quiet, low-key personal life, not one that you would think would be involved in any sort of violence or any sort of nefarious activity. And that night happened to be her 49th birthday. She was not scheduled to work that night. She got called in or requested, and she decided to go in and work a shift that night. The entire shift, from what I can tell, was pretty uneventful, just a normal night at the restaurant. She was moved from the front desk area to the drive-thru. The first drive-thru order, a male voice came over the loudspeaker, ordered a single meal. And she took the order as he pulled around to the drive-thru, fired 2 shots at her, or at least 2 shots at her, and one of them proved to be fatal.
And her son is working in the restaurant at the exact same
Correct.
time.
Her son Jude was there and saw all this,
Horrible.
And yeah, I mean it's heartbreaking if you think about it. And I've spoken to Jude, and I don't know if I would be as well adjusted as he has, overseeing something like that. But again, by all accounts, very close-knit family. I mean, obviously they were working together. So it's just one of those things, or one of those incidents where you really, really want to give this family some justice, but really some closure as well to this entire event.
And as you mentioned, it was her birthday. She wasn't scheduled to work. That speaks volumes as to what kind of person she was.
Right.
To come in on her birthday. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like obviously a hard worker.
So what were some of the eyewitness accounts delivered to officers who responded to the scene at the time?
At the time, there was an account of a guy in a phone booth, because I mean this is 1991, and I think that's what people don't understand, or it's hard for people my age and younger to picture what 1991 was like. I was 6 years old when this happened, so I remember that time frame, but I don't remember all the technology and everything else like that. So you're not dealing with cell phones or really even security cameras at this point very much. So yeah, I mean, there was a witness seeing a guy in a phone booth that may or may not have seen something. Another witness said that a light-colored sedan fled the scene. Don't really know if that sedan was involved or not. He just said it was driving away after the incident occurred. So, I mean, not a lot of eyewitnesses, to the case. And just by the very nature of the case, that we presume shots came from inside of a vehicle from the vehicle to the restaurant, any forensic evidence probably drove away with that vehicle. So we really started, kind of behind the eight ball when it came with evidence and eyewitness testimony here.
You had announced at our last news conference on this case, which was around the time of her unfortunate passing, that somebody claimed they saw a license plate. Is that correct? With a certain verbiage on it?
Yeah, that same light-colored sedan that was seen leaving the scene may have had a personalized license plate on the front that said something to the effect of Liz or Lisa. Again, we have not found this vehicle. I think at the beginning of this investigation, the detectives worked extremely hard to locate this vehicle. They may have thought they were closing in on one, but we've never really were able to hammer that in.
At this point, is there any indication that this was anything other than just some random act of violence?
So I can't say for sure that this wasn't anything else other than that. But if you look at the facts of the case, she wasn't supposed to be there. She just moved from one spot of the restaurant to the other. My gut feeling tells me this was random, which is even more cruel than, I guess a normal homicide, if you would think about it. Like for you to do this and kill someone with really no motive is, I can't even really comprehend that. I don't know why anyone would do that unless you're just kind of a monster. But if you look at the evidence in this case, it points to that. And we've looked at Peggy's personal life. There really isn't anything there that would warrant something like this. We've looked at her professional life, and the same holds true with that. So I can't say definitively that this is a random act of violence, a random killing, but that's what I wager that this is.
Now, you took over this case how many years ago?
It would have been 2022, I think, or 2021. I've had it for several years now.
Tell me about, even before your time taking over the case, tell me about the leads that have come in throughout the years. And I know there have been some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had people talk to us from prisons saying that they've heard certain things, and we've obviously followed up as much as we can with that. We've also had people, I always talk to some colleagues about this case, and it brings out what I always kind of refer to as old Williamson County. There are a lot of people here that their families have been here for a long, long time. I'm from Davidson County, so I didn't really realize that when I moved down here. But there are a lot of families and a lot of people down here that I would call old Williamson County. And those people have routinely been feeding us leads of possible suspects in this case. Unfortunately, none of them have really panned out the way I would like them to. I can't even tell you how many people that we've spoken to about this case, and to this day we're still speaking to.
Yeah, this happened back in '91. You mentioned back then surveillance video, really didn't exist. What else made this case tough from the get-go?
I think just the fact that likely half the crime scene drove away, the apparent randomness of the act. These things, whenever you're investigating a homicide, you really look at motive, and we haven't been able to find one. And that in and of itself puts us at a disadvantage. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying, that this appears to be random. It may not be, and maybe there's something about Peggy's life that we never really were able to uncover. But we have really dug into her personal life, and there really hasn't been anything that I would even consider to be questionable. When I say she was a homebody, a hard worker, and a family woman, that's what she did. That's what her whole life was around. She wasn't involved in drugs or violence or stealing or anything like that. So it's very strange that that she would be the victim of something like this.
Is this a case that keeps you up at night?
I mean, I think about it a lot, I do. I think about it a lot. I feel like we're just constantly getting closer to answers for their family.
What makes you think that?
Well,
stuff you can say,
sure,
publicize.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've recently been joined in this investigation by a partner of mine, Detective Dylan Lipinski. He's helped me out a lot with this case, and it helps. I like bringing people onto it just because, anything you do when you bring fresh eyes onto something, they'll help you uncover more, maybe something that you've overlooked. And so we've gone from talking about this case from once every month or so to almost, if not every day, we talk about it, to every week. And like you said, without revealing too much, there are some leads that we have uncovered that may help us shed some light on what happened that night. It does involve some incarcerated people. It involves crimes in other counties. But ultimately, it's going to have to kind of come down to interviews and almost like personal references of certain individuals. The physical evidence thing is difficult. Most of these cold cases are solved with DNA. We don't have much of that in this case. So DNA is not something we're going to be able to really rely on. We've been, like I said, Dylan and I have kind of gone to other counties, talking to other investigators about this. But I think at some point we'll be able to tell the family, what happened at some point.
So would you say the confidence level is high?
It's higher than it has been in the past couple of years. I mean, to be totally transparent, I was getting pretty discouraged there for a while. Leads stopped coming in, and it was like, what do we do now? I don't know what to do right now. And that's when Dylan and I kind of looked at this whole thing, and we kind of brainstormed, came up with some ideas, and just kind of hit the ground running with it. It's going to take time, unfortunately, dealing with this type of crime and this time frame of happening back in 1991. It's just going to give us, it's going to take time for us to figure this out. And really, we really need to be very deliberate with what our next move is going to be. But the confidence is definitely higher than it has been over the past, I'd say, 2 or 3 years.
I asked this question to Detective Craig Wright when we sat down with him a couple of weeks ago for the podcast. And I know he's not involved with this case, but I'm going to ask you the same question I asked him. Just what would it mean to CID, to this entire department, to the city of Franklin to get this one solved?
That would mean everything for us. It not only is the only unsolved homicide in the city, but there's an entire family out there just waiting for answers. And for us to be able to give that to them would mean the world to us. Not only bring, hopefully, her killer to justice, but hopefully just to kind of give them the answer to their question of why this even happened. There's been rumors all over the place about a motive of maybe somebody thought she saw something or she was involved in something at work, and we just haven't been able to really, there's not a lot of evidence that shows that that's the case. So if we can get enough answers for them and explain to them, like, this is what happened, that would just, it would be a very good day for us.
But as you've said time and time again, it's getting harder each and every day. People are, passing away and things like that. So although your confidence is high, it's still getting more difficult. Is that fair to say? Sure.
Yeah. And I think confidence is higher, but I'm definitely cautiously optimistic at it. I'm not, it's not imminent by any means, but we have something to do. We have work that has to be done, and we know what we need to do. We're just trying to figure out the best way to go about it. And I know I'm being real vague.
No, you're good.
I know I'm being real vague with everything, but I just don't want to compromise anything that we've done. But trust me, there are leads that we're working on. We don't just open this case file. The case file's not even it's in our desk. It's at our desk with every other open case file that I have. It's sitting there.
So it's fair to say this is not a cold case. This is still actively being investigated.
Yeah, I mean, I think technically it's a cold case because that's what people keep calling it, but the case file's at our desk. Like I said, I meet with Dylan once a week or every day and talk to him about it. We're actively driving to different places and interviewing people about this. We're trying to figure out what leads we can follow up on and when we should do it. So I'm not working it like a cold case. This is absolutely being worked like a case
it's a top priority.
That's active and a top priority. Sure. Yeah.
I know it's cliche, but somebody out there knows something. We often hear that statement, that sentence a lot. What would you say to an individual or individuals who do know something about this case and have remained silent all these years for whatever reason?
I think you're right. I think even if one person drove through that drive-through and shot and killed Peggy Cox, that individual has either told someone about it or led on that they were involved in this. I can't believe someone would go through that and just not say a word about it ever again. If someone knows something, please just call us, ask for me. They'll transfer you right to my desk, and I'll talk to you about it. We just need that. That's something we need. And like I said, there have been additional leads that have come up over the past couple months, and that statement from someone that may have heard something 30 years ago might be enough to push it over the top for us.
Yeah.
So please, come forward. Give yourself, get it off of you, A lot of people that come forward and talk about these things, they feel relief from it. Whoever knows something is carrying this with them. And 30 years later, how far do you want to carry this? I don't think if you know something or if you did this, that you want to carry this to the end. I think you want to get this off your chest. And we're here to listen. We're not going to judge you. We have to do what the law says, but, I'm going to listen to what you say.
Yeah. And to our listeners and viewers, if you do have any information, you can contact us. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, there is a poster of Peggy's picture to my left, and the phone number to call for tips, 794-2513. That's 615-794-2513. Wrapping up, Matt, what does it say about the department, specifically CID, the fact that there is only one unsolved homicide in this community? What does that say about the work that you all do each and every day?
I think it kind of describes us as being just relentless with the investigations that we're assigned. We've had homicides since this, and we've solved them all. It's not something that we're going to tolerate here. We don't want to have violent crime in Franklin. We don't want to have violent crime in Williamson County. I know you had mentioned earlier that you talked to Detective Craig Wright about this, or you've talked to him in previous conversations. Well, everybody's been involved. I mean, I might be the lead detective, but we are very much a team over there. And when something like this happens, it's kind of all hands on deck, and we will solve the case. Especially, these newer ones that are coming up, that we can, from start to finish, knock them out pretty quick. And really, we've done a pretty good job at it.
Yeah. Is there anything else at all you want to add on this case that I didn't ask you about that you think would be important to get out there?
No, I think the biggest thing is if you know something, or if you know someone that might know someone, or if you've heard something at a party or something like that, or something that, we've had people say, hey, growing up, this guy said something weird one time that may have been, you might want to talk to him. I mean, anything. It could be big or small. give us a call. We'll follow up on it. That's what we're doing.
Finally, what's your message to Peggy's family as they continue to wait for justice?
Yeah, the message to them is that we haven't given up, and we're not going to, ever. The goal is not to just keep this case open indefinitely. The goal is to close it solved. That's the goal. We're doing everything we can. We're exploring every avenue, every opportunity that we got coming up. We're looking at everything. So I know it's been a long time since this has happened, but just know that there's a group of men and women in here that are not going to give up until we either retire or we figure out what happened that night.
Yeah. All right, Detective Matt Thompson, good luck to you and everybody else trying to solve this case. I know it's way up there, and I hope you get it solved. I think it would mean a lot to not only the family, but this entire community. So
Right.
Thank you for what you and everybody else down the hall at CID does each and every day. And thank you for joining us on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That will do it for this episode. We will see you next time, and stay safe, everybody.